My name is Eliza and I'm 32 years old. For most of my adult life, I thought I had everything under control. I worked as an accountant at a small but steady firm, spent weekends fixing up the house in the suburbs with my husband, and dreamed about maybe starting a family in a year or two. My husband Kevin was 35, an architect, who always seemed too busy with projects but still made time for our anniversary dinners and Sunday grocery runs. To anyone looking in from the outside, we looked like a couple building a quiet, dependable life together. I believed in that life so fiercely that when people asked me, "So when are the babies coming?" I'd just smile and say, "Someday soon." I had no reason to doubt him or us. My family lived nearby. My mother, Helen, was 55 and a nurse who worked long shifts, but always managed to keep up her warmth when she came home. My father, Robert, was 58, a mechanic, whose hands were always stained with grease, but who still had that playful spark in his eyes when he teased me. And then there was my younger sister, Megan, 28, the kind of woman who could walk into a room and have everyone's attention without even trying. She had a baby boy last year, though she never told us much about the father. She just laughed off questions, promising we'd meet him eventually. Despite the mystery, I adored her son. I called him Little Star because his giggles lit up the room. I loved being his aunt. It softened the ache of not yet having children of my own. But 3 weeks ago, everything in my carefully organized world collapsed. It was a rainy Thursday when Kevin's car hit a tree and burst into flames. The police told me it happened so quickly that he probably didn't even feel pain. But that thought didn't comfort me. His body was burned beyond recognition, and instead of a funeral with an open casket, I was left with ashes in a simple urn. The grief was crushing. The house we had filled with plans and conversations became a tomb. Every corner echoed with his absence, the unwashed coffee cup he'd left in the sink, the jacket still hanging by the door. I cried until my eyes burned. At the funeral, I could barely stand. My mother held my arm to keep me from collapsing. My father stood stiff beside her, his expression unreadable. At one point, I caught them exchanging a look across my bowed head, a glance so quick I might have imagined it. Later, my best friend Sarah whispered, "Your parents looked strange today. Not just sad, like they knew something you didn't." I brushed her off. People grieve in different ways, I thought. But the strangeness didn't end there. Megan didn't even come to the funeral. My parents said she couldn't, that the baby had been fussy, and she needed to stay home. I told myself not to take it personally. Maybe she couldn't handle the sight of death. Still, a small bitter part of me wondered, wouldn't you make every effort to be there for your grieving sister? That night, I sat alone in bed, staring at Kevin's side of the mattress. The silence felt like punishment. Every creak of the house made me flinch. I replayed the moments leading up to his death, the last breakfast we shared. How he kissed me on the forehead and said, "Don't wait up. I'll probably be late tonight." The words cut me differently now. He was always working late, always taking calls outside. I had never pressed him on it. Trust was supposed to be the foundation of marriage, wasn't it? Yet now, in the cold glow of grief, I began to feel a gnawing unease. A week later, the lawyer called. He said Kevin had left a will and that it was urgent I come in for the reading. I nearly laughed. Kevin and I were so young. We'd only been married 5 years. Why would he have written a will? It felt surreal. I didn't want to go alone. I asked my parents and Megan to come with me. Of course, my mother said quickly, almost too quickly. My father nodded, avoiding my eyes. Megan surprisingly agreed without excuses. For a moment, I was relieved maybe this was their way of showing me support. That night, however, sleep evaded me. I lay awake, the shadows on the ceiling shifting into shapes that felt like warnings. Something about my parents' eagerness nagged at me. Something about Megan's sudden willingness after skipping the funeral made my chest tighten. I pressed a pillow to my face, muffling my sobs. I told myself I was paranoid that grief was twisting my thoughts. But deep inside, a small voice whispered, "You don't know the full story, Eliza. You never did." And as I finally drifted into a restless sleep, I couldn't shake the feeling that the worst was yet to come. The lawyer's office smelled faintly of leather and dust, the kind of place where old secrets are sealed in mahogany drawers. I sat at the long conference table, my palms damp against the polished wood. My mother sat on my right, squeezing my hand like I was still a child. My father leaned back stiffly in his chair, avoiding my gaze. Megan sat across from me, her posture casual, but her eyes restless, darting around the room like she was waiting for a signal. Mr. Peterson, the lawyer, cleared his throat. He was an older man with silver hair and glasses that kept slipping down his nose. He shuffled papers with deliberate slowness, as though savoring the moment before detonating a bomb. When he began to read, his voice was steady, but the words shattered my world. I leave half of my property to my son. The word son slammed into me like a physical blow. For a heartbeat, I couldn't breathe. My chest rose and fell rapidly as if I'd just been shoved underwater. My husband had a son. I blinked, convinced I'd misheard. Excuse me. My voice cracked. There must be some mistake. My husband doesn't have a son. Mr. Peterson peered at me over his glasses, sympathetic but firm. Mrs. Thompson, according to this, your husband Kevin leaves his house to you, and he leaves his downtown apartment and $300,000 to his son. I shook my head violently. No, that's not possible. He was married before me. Yes, but he told me they never had children. That's one of the reasons his first marriage ended. My voice rose desperate, like I could argue the truth into existence. That's when Megan stood. Her chair scraped harshly against the floor, echoing in the still room. Her hands trembled, but her chin lifted her eyes, locking onto mine with a strange mixture of guilt and defiance. Actually, Eliza, she hesitated, swallowed, then steadied her voice. My son is Kevin's son. He's the father of my baby. The air drained from the room. My ears buzzed like a swarm of bees had taken residence inside my skull. What I whispered, barely audible. Megan's hand dug into her purse, pulling out folded documents. She slapped them onto the table with trembling fingers. Here's the birth certificate. Kevin is listed as the father. Then she pulled out her phone and began flicking through photos. Look! She turned the screen toward me. Picture after picture. Kevin holding Megan's newborn in the hospital. Kevin pushing a stroller. Kevin with his arm wrapped around her waist, kissing her cheek. My stomach twisted violently, bile creeping up my throat. I snapped my head toward my parents, searching their faces for shock, denial, something. But they didn't look surprised at all. My mother's lips were pressed into a thin, sad line. My father rubbed his temple as if the whole thing was tiresome but inevitable. You knew, my voice cracked into a jagged cry. My mother sighed heavily, as if she'd rehearsed this moment. Honey, yes. Megan and Kevin have been in a relationship for 2 years. They loved each other. We didn't tell you because we didn't want to hurt you. The words ripped through me like glass. I felt my insides splinter. 2 years, I croaked. While I was married to him. My throat closed. You all knew. You all watched me sit at family dinners. Laugh, talk. Love him. And you kept this secret. Megan's lips trembled, but her voice carried a strange conviction. I didn't mean for it to happen, Eliza. Kevin and I. It just did. We didn't want to hurt you, but now the truth is out. The truth. I almost laughed, but the sound that left my throat was closer to a sob. I stared at the photos again, my vision swimming. All those late nights Kevin claimed he was at the office. All those weekends Megan said she was busy. My mind replayed them in grotesque clarity, each lie fitting together like puzzle pieces into an image I'd refused to see. You're all traitors, I whispered, my body trembling. Every single one of you. My chair screeched backward as I stood so suddenly it toppled over. I didn't care. My mother reached for me, but I wrenched my hand free. My father muttered something under his breath, but I didn't hear. Megan's eyes filled with tears, but they looked rehearsed, insincere. I grabbed my purse and stormed out of the office, the sound of the heavy wooden door slamming behind me reverberating like a gunshot. Outside, the air was sharp and cold, biting my skin as though it wanted to peel away the last illusion I clung to. I stumbled to my car, slammed the door shut, and sat there shaking, unable to drive. My hands clutched the steering wheel knuckles, white breath ragged. For 5 years, I thought I had a husband, a family, a future. And in a single afternoon, I realized I had nothing but ashes and betrayal. When I finally made it home, I dropped onto the couch, the one Kevin and I had chosen together, and sobbed until my throat was raw. The house felt hostile now, haunted by his lies. Every picture frame mocked me. Every shadow whispered, "How could you not have known?" My mind replayed the scene at the lawyer's office on a loop. Megan's trembling hands but steady words. My parents' resigned expressions. Their silence had been complicity all along. Sarah's words from the funeral echoed back to me. Your parents looked like they knew something you didn't. She had been right. They all knew. They had chosen Megan over me long before I discovered the truth. The betrayal was suffocating, but underneath it, another feeling coiled, a dark, simmering anger that threatened to swallow me whole. And as I sat in the ruins of my life, one thought began to burn in my chest. If they all lied to me once, what else have they been hiding? The days after the will reading passed in a haze of grief and disbelief. I stopped answering calls from my parents. I ignored Megan's texts unopened, like festering wounds on my phone. Even Sarah, my best friend, came by to check on me, but I pretended not to hear the door. I couldn't bear to look anyone in the eye. I spent hours on the couch staring blankly at the ceiling fan spinning above me. Sometimes I would pick up Kevin's shirt from the laundry basket just to bury my face in it, inhaling the faint scent of his cologne, then hurl it across the room in disgust. He had been living two lives under my nose, one with me and one with my own sister. Every memory betrayed me. That time he claimed he had to work late, was he with her? When he said he was helping a friend move, was it actually Megan's apartment he was slipping into? I remembered his phone lighting up at odd hours, and how he'd excuse himself to take the call outside, smiling sheepishly when he came back in. I had written off all of it as work stress. Now I knew better. Now every excuse sounded like a lie I had foolishly swallowed whole. The silence of the house was unbearable. At night, I'd jolt awake, convinced I'd heard a baby crying in the distance, only to realize it was just in my head. My mind had become a prison where Megan's voice replayed over and over. My son is Kevin's son. We didn't want to hurt you. One night, I opened a bottle of wine, poured a glass, and sat on the back porch. The air smelled of damp earth after rain. I stared into the dark yard and thought about leaving everything behind. Selling the house, quitting my job, moving far away where no one knew me. But then I remembered Megan's smug expression at the lawyer's office, my parents' silent compliance. They had all expected me to crumble quietly to accept their betrayal without protest. The thought ignited something in me. I slammed my wine glass on the table, crimson liquid splashing across the wood like spilled blood. No, they don't get to destroy me that easily. The next morning, my phone rang. I almost didn't pick up, but the number was unfamiliar. Against my better judgment, I answered. "Is this Eliza Thompson?" a woman's voice asked. "Yes," I said warily. "My name is Jennifer Morrison. I used to be Jennifer Thompson, Kevin's ex-wife." The room tilted. My grip on the phone tightened. "Oh, hi. I'm sorry to reach out like this," she continued, her voice steady but carrying an undercurrent of urgency. "I heard about what happened at the will reading through mutual friends. They gave me your number. I think we should meet. There are things you need to know about Kevin." I hesitated, my mind racing. Kevin's ex-wife. The woman he had left years ago. Why would she want to talk to me now? What could she possibly add to this mess? What kind of things, I asked cautiously. "Things that might help you understand the situation better," she said. "Things that might help you decide what you want to do about it." Her tone was firm, almost protective. Against my instinct to shut her out, curiosity tugged at me. Maybe she knows more. Maybe she can confirm what's true and what's lies. Where I asked finally. "There's a coffee shop called Brewer's on 5th Street. Tomorrow, 2 p.m., I'll be wearing a red scarf, shoulder-length blonde hair." When the call ended, I sat frozen, staring at my phone. The idea of meeting Kevin's ex-wife felt absurd, almost surreal. Yet deep inside, I felt a flicker of anticipation, like a hand was pulling me closer to the truth I had been circling in the dark. That night, sleep was impossible. I tossed and turned, replaying Megan's words, my parents' silence, Kevin's lies. But now, layered over them, was the voice of Jennifer Things You Need to Know. At 3 a.m., I found myself pacing the kitchen. The refrigerator hummed. The clock ticked. I poured a glass of water and gripped it tightly, staring at my reflection in the window. I barely recognized the woman staring back, dark circles under her eyes, hair, unwashed lips pressed into a thin line. "You're not crazy," I whispered to myself. "They betrayed you, and tomorrow you'll get answers." The following day, I left the house early, my nerves wound tight like coiled wire. The city seemed louder than usual, horns, blaring footsteps, echoing conversations buzzing around me. Every sound made me flinch. When I entered the coffee shop, the smell of roasted beans and sugar enveloped me. My eyes scanned the room until I spotted her. A woman in her late 30s sat in the corner, a bright red scarf draped around her neck. Her hair blonde and neatly styled, framed a face that looked both tired and resolute. She looked up, recognition flickering in her eyes. "Eliza?" she asked. "Yes," I said, sliding into the seat across from her. My voice sounded strange in my own ears, thin, hesitant. "Thank you for coming." She smiled faintly, but it didn't reach her eyes. She waved a hand to the barista and ordered 2 coffees, then leaned forward. I know this must feel strange, but I couldn't stay silent anymore. My stomach clenched. Why now? Why after all this time? Jennifer reached into her purse and pulled out a manila envelope. She placed it carefully on the table between us. Because you deserve the truth, she said, her gaze steady. And I have proof. I stared at the envelope, my pulse pounding. Proof. Of what? That Kevin had betrayed me even more than I thought. That Megan's story wasn't what it seemed. Jennifer's hand hovered over the envelope as though she was giving me a chance to stop her, but I couldn't. My fingers twitched, aching to tear it open. And as the hum of this coffee shop faded around us, I knew that whatever was inside that envelope had the power to destroy everything I thought I knew again. Jennifer slid the manila envelope across the table toward me. Her hand lingered on it for a moment, as though she knew that once I opened it, there would be no going back. My throat tightened. What's in there? She met my eyes, proof that Kevin could never have fathered your sister's child. The words hit me like a slap. For a second, I thought I'd misheard. I gave a short, humorless laugh. What are you talking about? He's listed on the birth certificate, Megan. Megan is lying. Jennifer's tone was flat, but beneath it, anger flickered like a flame. And I know because I lived it. Her eyes grew glassy, her voice trembling slightly as she continued. When I was married to Kevin, he constantly blamed me for our inability to have children. I went through test treatments, endless appointments, always under his scrutiny. He made me feel defective. She paused, swallowing hard. Then finally, we both went for full evaluations. The results took weeks to come back. But before I even received mine, Kevin announced he had met someone new. Her gaze softened briefly, almost apologetic. He told me he had fallen in love, that he wanted a fresh start. He filed for divorce. 2 weeks after he walked out the clinic, called me with the results. She tapped the envelope with her finger. They confirmed what I had suspected deep down. Kevin was infertile, completely sterile. He could never father a child. I stared at her, my mind reeling. That's impossible. Megan showed me pictures. She showed me documents. Jennifer's voice sharpened. Pictures can lie. Birth certificates can be filled however someone wants, but medical records don't. He couldn't have given her that child. My shaking hands reached for the envelope. I slid the papers out, my eyes skimming across the cold medical terms: azoospermia, non-obstructive, irreversible. I didn't understand every detail, but the repeated words sterile and infertile were impossible to ignore. Kevin's name was printed clearly at the top of every page. The room seemed to tilt sideways. My ears buzzed. Kevin, the man who had told me we'd have children someday, had known this, or maybe he hadn't. Either way, the conclusion was the same: Megan's story was a lie. Jennifer's voice broke through my haze. I should have told him. I should have told you. But when he left me, I was angry. I decided to let his new wife discover it on her own. It was petty revenge. She sighed, guilt flashing across her face. But when I heard your sister's claims, I couldn't let her use his name to steal from you. I folded the documents back into the envelope, my hands trembling. So Megan's child can't be his. Jennifer nodded. Not biologically, no matter what she says. For the first time in weeks, something stirred inside me. Not grief, not despair, but a spark of resolve. My phone buzzed violently in my pocket, jolting me. Megan's name lit up the screen. I almost ignored it, but she called again and again until finally I answered. Her voice was sharp, almost commanding. Eliza, we need to settle this inheritance. Kevin's son deserves what's his. The apartment, the money, you heard the will. I glanced at Jennifer, who was watching me closely. I let out a bitter laugh. I'm not in any hurry. Megan's tone turned venomous. Well, you better hurry. Kevin pitied you. If he'd lived longer, everything would have gone to his real family. My jaw clenched. His real family. Yes, she snapped. Me and our baby. He told me you were barren. He said you were an inferior woman who could never give him children. He was planning to leave you. The only reason he stayed was because I gave him what you couldn't. Her words cut through me like a knife. My grip on the phone tightened until my knuckles whitened. You're lying, I whispered, though part of me feared she wasn't. Am I? Megan sneered. A second later, my phone buzzed with incoming texts. One by one, screenshots filled my screen messages from Kevin calling me useless, barren, inferior. Words about how much he loved Megan, how he was waiting for the right time to leave me. Each message felt like a dagger twisting deeper. My chest burned, my breath coming in short gasps. See, Megan's voice was almost triumphant. He loved me. He wanted me. You were just the obstacle in the way. I couldn't listen anymore. My hand shook as I hung up. Jennifer reached across the table, her touch gentle. Don't believe her. Believe the evidence. Kevin may have loved her, may have believed her lies, but biologically, he could never have been that child's father. You need to fight back, Eliza. My eyes drifted back to the envelope, the papers heavy with truth. Megan thought she had me cornered with her photos and texts. My parents thought I would roll over and disappear. But now I had something none of them expected proof. I inhaled shakily, my voice hardening. I won't let her take everything. Not after this. Jennifer gave me a small nod, her expression firm. Good. Because if you don't fight, she'll win, and you'll lose more than just the inheritance. You'll lose yourself. When I left the coffee shop, the world outside looked different. The sky seemed sharper, the air colder. But for the first time since Kevin's death, I felt clarity slicing through the fog. They had lied. They had all lied, and I wasn't going to be their victim anymore. The next morning, I sat across from a man named David Chen, a lawyer recommended by one of Sarah's colleagues. His office was smaller than Mr. Peterson's, but felt alive with energy, piles of files stacked high, a whiteboard filled with scribbles of case notes. He was known for taking on messy family disputes, the kind most lawyers avoided. David leaned forward, listening intently as I poured out my story. The will. Megan's claim, the photos, the texts, and finally Jennifer's documents. When I slid the envelope across his desk, his eyes sharpened. He skimmed the pages, then looked up. This is good, he said. Medical records from a credible clinic. But in court, Megan's side will argue that conditions can change, that Kevin might have miraculously recovered. I let out a hollow laugh. Recovered from infertility. David raised a brow. People will believe whatever story benefits them. We need something irrefutable. DNA. My heart sank. Kevin was cremated. There's nothing left. True, David agreed, tapping his pen against the desk. But we don't need him directly. We just need someone from his bloodline. A parent, a sibling, even a child from another relationship. I shook my head slowly. His mother's gone. His younger brother died in an accident when they were kids. He didn't keep in touch with his father. Said he'd betrayed the family after the divorce. David's eyes narrowed in thought. But the father is still alive. I think so. Somewhere in Texas, last I heard. Then that's where we start, he said firmly. If we can get him tested, we'll know whether Megan's baby is related to Kevin's family. If it's not the will's clause about a son collapses in court. The idea both terrified and electrified me. Could I really drag Kevin's estranged father into this? Could I put Megan on trial for her lies? While David's investigator began the search, I returned home to find my phone vibrating endlessly with Megan's name flashing on the screen. I ignored her. Then the text started. You're jealous. Admit it. Kevin loved me more. That house should have been mine. He only left it to you out of pity. I saved every single message, screenshotting them, forwarding them to David. They became like weapons in my arsenal, each one proof of her cruelty. One night I woke to a voicemail notification. Her voice spilled into the dark room, low and venomous. You think you're strong, Eliza, you're not. You've always been weak. That's why Kevin came to me. You can fight, but in the end, I'll win. I have his child. And you'll always just be the barren wife he pitied. I sat frozen in bed, the glow of my phone lighting my clenched fists. For the first time in weeks, I didn't cry. I felt something else rage so pure it steadied me. Days turned into weeks. The investigators' updates came slowly, each one a thread pulling me forward. Meanwhile, the silence from my parents was deafening. When they finally did call, it wasn't to ask how I was, but to lecture me. Eliza, my mother said over the phone, her tone tight. Stop this nonsense. Don't humiliate yourself. Megan has a child to think of. She deserves Kevin's support. My throat tightened. And what about me? What do I deserve, Mom? A pause. Then, sometimes life isn't fair. But blood is blood. That baby is family. Family, I spat. Family doesn't watch me live a lie and stay silent for 2 years. Family doesn't sit in a lawyer's office and nod while my world collapses. Eliza, I hung up before she could finish. My hands trembled, but my resolve hardened. They had chosen their side, and it wasn't mine. Finally, after nearly a month, David called. We found him. Robert Thompson. Lives in Austin, Texas. 70 years old. Remarried. My investigator confirmed it's him. My breath caught, and... Will he help? David hesitated. That depends. This kind of request is personal. You should go in person. Look him in the eye. Make him understand what's at stake. The thought of boarding a plane to face a man Kevin had despised felt surreal. But what choice did I have? That night, as I packed a small bag, I found myself staring at Kevin's photo on the mantel. His smile mocked me now, every detail of his face tinged with betrayal. "You thought you could bury me under lies," I whispered to the photo. "But you forgot I'm still alive, and I'm not done." The next morning, I boarded a flight to Austin. The hum of the engines drowned out my thoughts. But underneath the noise, a quiet determination pulsed. I wasn't just fighting for an inheritance anymore. I was fighting for the truth, for the part of myself they all thought they could destroy. When the plane landed, the sun was setting over the Texas horizon, painting the sky in bruised shades of purple and gold. I gripped my bag tighter. Tomorrow I would meet Robert Thompson. Tomorrow I would find out if the truth was finally within reach. Robert Thompson opened the door cautiously when I knocked. He was older than I imagined, his gray hair thinning his face lined with the kind of sorrow only lifelong regrets can carve. His second wife hovered behind him, wary. "You're Kevin's wife?" he asked, disbelief softening into something almost like pity. I nodded. "Yes, I'm sorry to show up like this, but I need your help." Inside his modest apartment, I told him everything. The will Megan's claim, Jennifer's records. He listened, without interrupting, his expression darkening with every word. Finally, he leaned back and shook his head. "That boy could never have children. The doctors told us when he was 16. He had MS as a child, left him infertile. His mother and I never told him. We thought it would crush him." The room went still. My hands clenched in my lap. "So you'll help me prove it?" Robert's gaze was steady. "If someone's using my son's name to steal from you, I'll stand in court myself." For the first time in weeks, I felt the ground beneath my feet again. The trial arrived like a storm. The courthouse smelled of stale paper and anxiety. My heart hammered as I walked in with David on one side and Robert on the other. Across the aisle sat Megan, my parents flanking her like loyal guards. She cradled her baby in her arms, rocking him gently, her expression calm, almost smug. When her eyes met mine, she smirked. My mother avoided my gaze. My father looked at me like I was the one on trial. The judge entered, and proceedings began. Megan's lawyer was slick, weaving a story of secret love of a man torn between two women of a baby who deserved his rightful inheritance. Megan took the stand, dabbing her eyes with a tissue as she described her relationship with Kevin. "We wanted to wait until his son turned one before telling Eliza. We didn't want to hurt her," she said, her voice trembling. My parents nodded solemnly from the benches, confirming every lie. David leaned over and whispered, "She's playing the sympathy card, but wait until our turn." When it came, David rose smoothly. He presented Jennifer's medical records, first laying them out before the judge. "Your Honor, these documents prove that Kevin Thompson was medically incapable of fathering children." Megan leapt to her feet. "That's not true. Those are forged." The judge banged his gavel. "Miss Wilson, sit down." Her face flushed, but she obeyed, shooting daggers at me from across the room. Then David smiled faintly. "Fortunately, we don't need to rely on documents alone, Your Honor. Kevin Thompson's biological father is present in this courtroom and has agreed to a DNA test." Robert rose slowly, his presence quiet but powerful. "I'm Kevin's father," he said, his voice steady. The color drained from Megan's face. For the first time, I saw fear crack her composure. The judge nodded. "Very well. We will order a DNA test to compare the child's genetic material with Mr. Thompson's. This hearing will be postponed until the results are available." The gavel struck, echoing through the courtroom like thunder. Outside the courtroom, the air was thick with tension. I barely made it 3 steps before Megan rushed after me, her baby clutched tightly to her chest. "Eliza, wait," she hissed, grabbing my arm. I yanked free, glaring. "Don't touch me." Her eyes darted around, desperate. "Listen, we don't have to go through with this. Forget the apartment. Forget the DNA test. Just give me the money. 300,000 and I'll disappear. No trial, no scandal." I stared at her, the sister I once shared childhood secrets with, now begging like a cornered animal. "You think this is about money?" I whispered coldly. "No, Megan. This is about the truth. And the truth is coming whether you want it or not." Her face twisted, half pleading, half resentful. "But we're sisters." "No," I cut her off. "We stopped being sisters the day you slept with my husband." I turned and walked away, leaving her standing there, her baby fussing in her arms. The weeks waiting for the results crawled by. Megan's text turned frantic, then threatening again. My parents called furious, accusing me of humiliating the family. "You're suing your own sister," my mother snapped over the phone. Do you have no shame? You watched me live a lie for 2 years, I said coldly. You have no right to talk about shame. My father tried next. Family is family, Eliza. You don't abandon blood. I laughed bitterly. No, Dad. Blood abandoned me. I hung up before he could reply. Finally, the day of the results arrived. The courtroom was packed tension thick as the judge reviewed the DNA analysis. Based on the evidence, he began, this court finds there is no genetic relationship between the child in question and Mr. Robert Thompson. Therefore, the late Kevin Thompson could not have been the biological father. Gasps rippled through the room. My parents looked stunned, genuine disbelief etched across their faces. They had truly believed Megan. The judge continued, as such, the child has no legal claim to Mr. Thompson's estate. Mrs. Eliza Thompson is declared the sole heir. The gavel struck final and undeniable. Megan's sobs broke the silence. She clutched her baby, shaking her head violently. I didn't know, I swear, I thought Kevin was the father, she cried. The judge's eyes were cold. Ignorance does not excuse deception. As the courtroom emptied, Megan staggered toward me, tears streaking her face. Please, Eliza, don't do this. Don't cut me off. We're family. I looked at her, at the parents standing behind her, their faces still painted with shock, and for the first time, I felt nothing. No pity, no love, only clarity. You chose lies, I said quietly. Now live with them. I turned away, Robert steadying me as we walked out together. For the first time in months, the air outside felt light. The truth had won. After the verdict, silence settled into my life in a way that felt both heavy and liberating. The storm was over. Megan's deception had been exposed, the will corrected, and I had been named the sole heir. Yet victory didn't feel like triumph. It felt like ashes, the kind that still clung to your skin long after the fire had died. My parents called me in the weeks after the trial, their voices a blend of pleading and reprimand. Eliza, my mother said one evening, you and Megan are still sisters. You need to forgive her. I stared at the phone in my hand, her words echoing like a cruel joke. Forgive her. She slept with my husband, lied about her child, tried to steal from me, and you defended her. Why would I forgive that? She made mistakes, my mother insisted. But that baby is still your nephew. No, I said, my voice cold. He's her child, her responsibility. I owe him nothing. My father tried next, his tone rough. You're being stubborn. Family doesn't cut each other off. I let out a bitter laugh. Family doesn't watch me drown in lies for 2 years, Dad. You protected Megan, not me. You chose your favorite child, and now you can live with that choice. I hung up before he could reply. It was the last real conversation we ever had. Megan, meanwhile, moved back into my parents' house. Through mutual acquaintances, I learned she had filed for child support against the real father of her baby, a married man, apparently. The whispers of her drama spread through town, each new rumor, like a headline in a scandal I wanted nothing to do with. Once she sent me a long message begging me to reconsider. She claimed she had been confused, that she truly believed Kevin was her child's father. She asked me for money, just a small share for the baby's sake. I deleted it without responding. I wasn't cruel. I wasn't heartless. But I had finally learned that compassion without boundaries was self-destruction. Oddly enough, the person who became my anchor through it all was Robert Kevin's estranged father. After standing by me in court, he began calling regularly sometimes just to check in, sometimes to reminisce about Kevin's childhood. At first, I wasn't sure how to respond. Kevin had betrayed me, so why would I want to know more about him? But Robert wasn't reaching out to glorify his son. He was reaching out to remind me that honesty still existed in this world. One afternoon, I visited him in Austin. His second wife greeted me warmly, and Robert showed me around his modest home. It was clear he didn't have much. His car was ancient coughing smoke whenever he turned the ignition. He wore old jackets with frayed cuffs. On his birthday, I surprised him with a brand new SUV. When I handed him the keys, his eyes welled up. Eliza, I can't accept this, he whispered, his voice trembling. You can, I said firmly. You saved me. Without you, Megan would have stolen everything. This is the least I can do. He hugged me, his body shaking with quiet sobs. Kevin was lucky to have you, even if he never realized it. I'm sorry he wasn't the man you thought he was. For the first time in months, my own tears felt cleansing, not suffocating. Life began to stitch itself back together, one quiet day at a time. I returned to work, throwing myself into projects until my boss promoted me. My home, once a tomb of betrayal, slowly transformed. I repainted walls, replaced furniture, planted a garden out back. Each change was a reclamation, a way of saying, this is mine now. My life, my space, my future. Yet sometimes late at night, I found myself staring at Kevin's old photo. For weeks, I wrestled with the contradiction how he had betrayed me, yet also believed he was about to be a father. Those messages Megan had shown me proved he had loved her, had wanted her. He had seen me as barren inferior. The man I mourned at the funeral was not the man who actually existed. And oddly, that realization was freeing. I hadn't lost the love of my life. I had lost an illusion. Months passed. Spring arrived. Sunlight streaming through the garden windows. For the first time, I began to imagine a future not defined by betrayal. I thought about dating again, though, cautiously. I wanted someone who would look me in the eyes and tell me the truth no matter how hard it was. More than that, I realized I still wanted a family, not in the way I once imagined tied to Kevin and Megan, but in a way that was real chosen. Maybe children of my own, maybe not. Maybe just a circle of people who valued honesty over blood. Because if this ordeal had taught me anything, it was that blood meant nothing without loyalty. My parents had chosen silence. My sister had chosen deceit. But Robert, a man who barely knew me, had chosen truth. And that made him family in a way they never were. One evening, Sarah came over with a bottle of wine. We sat on the porch, the scent of jasmine drifting through the air. "You're stronger than anyone I know," she said softly, raising her glass. I smiled faintly. No, I just finally stopped letting people break me. We clinked glasses, the sound sharp and clear in the twilight. And for the first time in a long time, I believed it. I had walked through fire and come out scarred, but not destroyed. The lies were behind me. The truth was mine. And the future was wide open.